You're listening to She Speaks, a Let Her Speak podcast that celebrates women's fearlessness, resiliency, and readiness to change the world. Welcome back, friends, to the She Speaks series. This is Catherine Porth, the founder of Let Her Speak. And with this episode, you will be hearing from Coy Kindred and Lina Evans, who were matched as a leader and a mentor in our Let Her Lead program. And these ladies cover a lot of ground in their episode. They are going to go in every direction, in every aspect of conversations that you can be having around leadership and motherhood and having your friendship circle. They talk about the wisdom that comes with time and the falsehood that we all think that we should have it all figured out at any given time. And in case you're not aware, there's no time that we ever feel like we have it all figured out. So I just want to give you that permission right now that it's okay if you don't feel like you have it all figured out. They talk about boundaries and being a full-time working mom and all that entails, as well as how important it is to have the right people around you all the time that you can rely on and count as friends. So let's dive into this amazing conversation between Coy and Lina.
So, I can tell you about what's going on with me right now. My family is living out of a hotel because of our pipe bursting.
Crazy.
And then the snowpocalypse of 24 that hit Knoxville, where we were completely not expecting that amount of snow, and that melted and turned to ice. So we couldn't go back home. Like, our road was impassable. So it's been fun. We've had a lot of adventures. We've made pillow forts, and we've enjoyed the hot breakfast that's free every morning. And we've made up a lot of games.
It's amazing to me that you did not do fun in air quotes. I'm a little bit horrified by that, because it would definitely have been fun in air quotes if I were telling the same exact story. I'll be honest.
I think my mom was one of 11, and so I'm used to a lot of kids. And when we were younger, we would make pallets on the floor and have sleepovers and pull out sheets. And so it really just felt like, oh, I'm going back to my childhood. It forced me to kind of detach from all the fuss and the hustle and bustle of every day. Like, I've been grinding and working on so many things. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of like this forced me to take myself out of it and almost return to childhood and that imagination and that fun. And it was like, it kind of gave me some life.
That's amazing. I'm happy for you for that. The rest of the world did not have that same experience, just for what it's worth, okay? Because we all were suffering some pandemic PTSD over here. We couldn't get out of our house. Some of us may have gone a little cuckoo a little bit. But, I mean, that's amazing that you can kind of go back to that space where you caught your breath and remembered what it's like to, be a sibling, be a mom, and have fun with your kids. That's fantastic. So props to you for that. The rest of us suffering, because living in a hotel,
yes,
that's wild, first of all, because I learned very recently, I have 2 kids, very big age gaps. I learned recently that when you go somewhere with your children, it is not called a vacation, it is called a holiday. When you go without your kids, that's a vacation. So I don't know what you would call what you're doing now other than horrifying, I think would be what I would. Living in a hotel, that's crazy impossible. During snowpocalypse and just in general, living in a hotel with kids, that's tough. That's tough stuff.
I would call it a staycation. A staycation is when you're not doing your normal day-to-day work. You're still in familiar surroundings, but you're taking a break in some type of way. So I have to put a silver lining there, or else I would have lost my mind.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I think that's a really, really good segue into the first question that I have for you, if I can.
Sure.
Yeah. So can you share a moment when you first realized the power of self-definition and how it has impacted your journey? I mean, frankly, your journey now and also your journey.
Yeah. So when I think of self-definition, it's really difficult to do just because so many of us are used to defining ourselves in relation to who we are to everyone else around us. Mm-hmm. So I have 4 children. I'm always mom, mommy, mom, mom. I'm rarely ever just Coy. and just being. I rarely have time to just imagine because I'm too busy doing. So finding a place, I think I hit a point, I would say maybe even in the last year where I've just been on this kind of transformative journey of finding myself. I'm 35 now. And it's so funny because 10 years ago at 25, I really thought I had life figured out. And I couldn't
My
have been more
22-year-old
wrong.
thinks the same thing.
Oh, man. I swore I had it together. Really was doing well in my career. It was a great time. It was. But then as life kind of cycled, I hit this point where it was like, who are you? What are you actually doing? And I realized, like, I was checking off all these things, like, okay, I own a home now. Okay, I've done that. I have children. Okay, I've done that. I have a career. I'm established here. The nonprofit that I'm at now, I've been there for 8 years. And so it's like, you're there. Now what? But something was still missing. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I was like, why? Why does it feel like something is missing? What am I missing? And so I kind of went on this journey where I was trying to find myself. I started skating, started playing my saxophone again, just a little bit of everything. I dove back into poetry. When I was in college, I used to do spoken word in slams and had so much fun doing that. And so I was like, let me get back into the art scene. Let me start connecting with people again. Thinking about coming out of COVID, I was like, oh man, I've got a people again. What does that even look like? Because we got so comfortable with Zoom and online conferences and that we were losing that face-to-face. Like, how are you building rapport with people in person? What does community look like when you're stuck in your home? And co-working spaces started sprouting up everywhere because people just needed to be together. And something sparked of like, wow, the more connected I am to other people, the more it seems like I'm figuring out who I am. So that self-definition, I think, came from disconnecting to and letting go of what I thought was supposed to be and just giving myself room to create like this blank canvas and just see what came of it organically. If I just, every single day, making sure that I was doing something that felt authentic to me and not because it was an obligation, not because it was an expectation that came from something exterior. And that was the shift that happened for me.
That's amazing. I mean, not to dive too much into the pandemic, but I feel like so many of us the pandemic was such a turning point for everybody, frankly, in a myriad of ways. For myself, I realized, I didn't realize, it's probably a better way to put it, how much I was working. I love to work. I have always loved to work. I didn't realize how much I was working until it was in my house. And then, it felt like it lasted an eternity. We all became, like you said, comfortable with the not peopling. And then all of a sudden it seemed like, okay, it's time to people, right? Time to go back into the workplace. How did you feel? Like, were you ready to go back? Were you ready to people again? Have you changed, like in terms of this whole self-definition thing? Did the pandemic change your self-definition of yourself by virtue of what it did to you and have all of that self-reflection? Because I know for myself, when I went back, I was so excited to go back. I was itching to go back. I mean, hello. I was shut in my house for like 6 days with ice and I was losing my mind. So clearly a couple years of a pandemic had me pajamas and at the grocery store with fuzzy socks on and all of that. But, it changed a lot of people's self-definition of themselves. Were you itching to go back? Were you ready to go back? Did you change the amount of peopling that you did? I know I did. I went back. I was so excited. And I was like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to see everybody. I'm going to be every place. And I was emotionally and physically spent. And I ended up having to, I was redefined by virtue of the pandemic. And then I had to then redefine myself again after, because I went back to being the person I was beforehand, and that was not working.
Wow. My experience is probably the opposite. I discovered that I am not an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. I'm an ambivert. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's kind of that person who's a little bit of both. It became one of those things where I was like, I actually don't mind if we continue staying this many feet apart at the grocery store. And I'm actually okay with some of these things. I'm a techie by heart. I love everything back of house, all the systems things. I'm a gamer girl. So I was still, able to put on my headset and connect with people, playing games, even connecting with my own son. I have a teenager. He plays Fortnite. Got me addicted. So I definitely shifted in some ways. But I don't think that I don't know that I would say it played a part in my self-definition. I think it gave me more ways to be creative so that I could really listen to those kind of intuitive cues of when do I feel that pull to people? How often do I feel like I need people? And so I think what it did do was help me learn how to leverage systems more so that I could connect when I needed to, and then that I could pull back when I needed to and not feel like this big pendulum swing where we go from, oh my gosh, I got to be at every networking event. I'm talking to every person. I'm showing up. I'm putting on full makeup and hair and, to I'm raggedy. I'm in my pajamas. I'm walking around with a hoodie and a cup of coffee, just like trying to force my way through. I think it helped me find balance. You know what? I don't like to say balance. I like to say harmony, because balance, it can put you in this state of constant juggling where you never actually find it. When you think about like putting weight on two scales and you're trying to get them to be perfectly balanced, you can go crazy waiting for them to actually line up. But if we focus on harmony instead and let everything just work together, I think it becomes so much more calming, so much more grounding. So I think I found harmony between how things were before and what kind of shifted with society, having to move to, ordering groceries online and all of that. So I think that's kind of what happened. And for me, definitely with where I work, I had the flexibility to, it's so funny, I had just done a proposal to my job to allow me to work from home right before COVID hit. They were letting me experiment. I think I had maybe 9 months to experiment with this because I decided I wanted to homeschool. And I knew that I couldn't do it and make this long commute. My nonprofit's all the way out in Newmarket. And I'm like, by the time I drive out there and drive back, it's going to be impossible. If y'all could just give me a shot and see if I can do just as much. If I can meet my same deliverables, everything's on time, then let me just do it from home. And that way I can take some extra time and develop curriculum for my own children. And it was a beautiful experience. I got to be home with my babies. They came with me. We would still go up to the hill and they would get to play around. They would meet my coworkers. We would have lunch and I would grab my mail and then I would, go back home. And so I kind of had just figured out that was a thing that could work for me. And then COVID hit. That's and then crazy. Everybody had to go home. And I was like, yes. I don't have to worry about the proposal getting approved because it was working and now we're forced to work through it. So I was kind of already in that shifting into it. And I think that's probably why my response to it wasn't as strong, because I was already learning how can I do more online? How can I get more done? And I feel like I was so much more productive when I had that extra time, when I lost that commute, all the extra things that just suck the energy, that you have so much brain capacity for making decisions. And if I have to make 30 of them before 8 o'clock in the morning, then how much am I actually going to be before I burn out? And I'm just, rolling hours on a clock. And I just felt like, productivity shot up. My well-being shot up. That was transformative for me.
That's amazing. I make those 30 decisions in the car ride on the way to work. That's how other regular people do it. That's fascinating. I think I did a little assessment thing. I think I'm an introverted extrovert. So like I gather energy from certain types of personalities, which makes me more extroverted, but like I don't mind being at home. I'm not sure. I'm still figuring it out. Depends on the day. Depends on whether there's blue cheese involved. Essentially, that's really how it works. So, you mentioned being 25 and thinking you had it all figured out. You're 35 now, a baby. I mean, my gosh, 35, you have so much life still. It's crazy. So many people learn cyclical lessons in life, right? You think about how you thought you knew everything at 25. I'm pretty sure we all thought as girls, we knew everything at 15, right? Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, 15, 18, 25. Could you give an example of a lesson that you had to learn multiple times, and what was the turning point for you in finally grasping that? There's probably a few, because we're women, so just one, maybe.
Absolutely. I will say, I will call this the carousel of my life. It's been a constant round and round of boundaries, of learning how to say no. I have been very guilty since I was a kid of people pleasing and not knowing that sometimes a no was a better answer than a yes that I could barely fulfill.
That's hard. We're women. We are not good. Literally had this conversation. What is today? Today's Thursday. Tuesday had a conversation with my therapist about boundaries. And I have 3 sisters. There's no boundaries when you have sisters. And so when you're raised like that, there's, you're punching each other and stealing clothes and pulling hair, and then you're best friends, and then you're mad because you like the same boy. And I mean, the boundaries, I think, is do we ever really fully learn boundaries, Coy?
I'm still listening to Audible books to help me learn how to say no today. So you asked if there was a turning point, and that's why I'm like, it's a carousel, because I think just depending on what's happening in life, you get to points where you learn what areas that you have to have more flexibility and you're able to stretch and say yes more. I think the biggest thing for me is to say yes to myself first. So that's been like the magic gem for me, has been if somebody asks me a question, hey, Coy, I know you said you had a lot going on, but I really need you to come to this event I'm having and come and say, just spit any kind of poem, just 3 minutes, make up something, you'll be great. And I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. I would love to help you. But when I think about how much time it's going to take to write that poem, and then I have to show up on that day, I now have to figure out, what is this event about? What's the theme? I'm doing research. I want to have the right, I want to deliver it with excellence. And if I can't feel proud of putting my name on it, oh my gosh, a no would be so much better than delivering anything less than the standard that I would want to present. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, if I say no, can I give another opportunity? Can I give them someone else who would be a great person to fill it in? How can I say yes to myself and my needs? My needs at that time are probably sleep because I hardly get any of that. I probably need to drink some water. Like, did I do any of the checklist things to make sure I'm good first? Because they say you can't pour from an empty cup. That's correct. And so just like checking that. So I don't know if you ever fully master it, but I think it's something that you practice at every single day. That's definitely a lesson that I'm constantly going around and around with and trying to improve.
Well, sister, you are not alone in that. I think we are all in that. We're all on that same carousel, like all the time. I think it's a matter of, regardless, I think, of whether you're a people pleaser or not, when someone asks us to do things, we go, well, yeah, of course, I want to help you, right? I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, whatever, we want to help. Oftentimes, what we haven't taken the time to do is educate people on the amount of emotional energy it takes for us to, A, just say yes, and B, actually execute. So I think that there's grace to be given always when someone asks you to help out with something or show up to something, because they don't really know. They're just making the ask, right? Whether they got asked by 5 other people and then you're now the 6th person that they're asking or something like that, or whether you were the first person that they asked. It has a lot to do with, what is the cycle? How did we get to this place? And I have found myself being frustrated when someone's asked me to do a thing, like, well, just look, you can see my calendar. You can see that I don't have time to do that, but they're asking for a reason. They're asking because they're in a tight spot, or because they believe that you are the person that can deliver the thing, and they not necessarily do they want to take credit for it, but they know that you would be shining and beautiful and all of those kinds of things. So, the boundaries thing, that's valid. That is a constant struggle, I think, for a lot of people. Give yourself grace, just like how you give grace to the people who ask you to do it. I mean, that's really important at the end of the day. It really is. So
absolutely.
It's hard when you are a people pleaser to define those boundaries and what is about, because I mean, you could have one boundary for a certain group of people, right? Like your coworkers. Yeah. It's interesting. I had this one woman who I used to work with, and when you go into the office on Monday, right? Everyone does the sort of, hey, how was your weekend? And the appropriate thing to do in a workspace is go, mine was great. How was yours? Well, that wasn't really her style. Her style was really just to tell you literally everything that she did that weekend. And next thing you know, 25 minutes later, you're still standing there and you're like, I could not care less about what you bought at the grocery store or what fight you got in with your husband or what you're like. It's not an unkind thing. So you set different kinds of boundaries with different kinds of people. And I think that makes that carousel ride a little faster, a little more treasure. Like you want to put that buckle on, because there's like this demographic of people that you have to set these kinds of boundaries with, and this demographic of people you got to set these kinds of boundaries with, and then your family. those boundaries depend on the day and how you're feeling and whether you've had your water, drink your water, Coy, whether you've gotten your sleep and that kind of thing. So, yeah, boundaries, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think the other part about that too is the easiest way to practice saying no is to actually embrace other people's no. So when you're moving in a spirit of being happy that someone else is actually honoring their boundaries when you've made an ask, it makes it so much easier when it's your turn to do it because you've honored it for someone else. So if I have asked for help and the person's like, oh, I wish I could, I can't, I have made it like something triggers in my brain where it's like, thank you for your honesty and for your transparency and for choosing yourself. And I've had people look at me like, what is wrong with you? I just said no. And it's like, no, that's a beautiful thing that you just did. It's something that I have a hard time doing. You have just inspired me. Thank you. And it completely, I don't know if it rewires something in your brain, but just embracing that, it makes you feel more comfortable with it. No is not a bad word,
Yeah.
So
That's a really good reminder because I think we have a tendency, we kind of react a little bit, right? We ask someone for help or we ask someone to do something or come with me to this thing or whatever, and someone honors their boundaries. We are always almost immediately struck by rejection. And it's hard to get, I think, from that place of rejection to that place of, oh, you're honoring your boundaries. Let me help you do that by reminding myself to honor my own. Because, I mean, the number of times I've asked somebody to go to something with me that I don't even want to go to. So I'm not honoring my boundaries. And then I'm asking someone else not to honor theirs with me so that I don't have to be alone and not honoring my own boundaries. Like it becomes, I mean, it's Snowpocalypse 2024. It's a snowball, effect rolling downhill. That's a really good reminder, Coy. It really is. Let's pivot a little bit. You and I've spoken a lot. You speak passionately about the importance of community. Can you share a specific instance where your community played a crucial role in your personal or professional growth? Just one. I know you got so many.
I was gonna say, where do you even start? I would definitely say
personal or professional.
It's all kind of both to me. I have a really thin line between personal and professional. I'm gonna go with when I chose to close Coy Kindred Consulting. When I chose to close the web design portion of Coy Kindred Consulting and move more strategically into the creative space, that was really hard. And a lot of it was because financially, it did not seem smart. It was one of those things where everybody was like, you've got this project and it is blowing up. You have to turn people away. You're making more money than you've ever made. And I was at a place where I needed my sister. I call them my tribe, my 3 closest friends. And then I have more on top of that. I'm going to say my 5 closest people to me. Had to sit me down and be like, hey, you are burning both ends of the candle. Yeah. And I was kind of like, am I though? But like, I'm on fire. Like you're seeing me everywhere. I'm getting invited to all these things. People want me to like come and talk to them and do these things. Why would I want to slow down? I have all this momentum. My bank account is growing. I'm able to do things I couldn't do. I'm able to be places I never dreamed I would have a seat at the table. I'm being invited into rooms, into spaces. And they were like, but look at your eyes. I can see the light kind of just dimming down a little bit. And it was almost like an intervention of my community of like my sisters being like, we love you and you're going to be great, whether it happens at the end of this quarter, at the end of this decade, in 20 years from now, it's in your future. You don't have to do it all today. And so having the support of the people closest to me, and some of those people were invested in this project. And so me ending it meant cutting off a stream of income for them too, because we had built partnerships. I'm making, these beautiful websites. And then I have my friends doing the photography for it, doing the hair and makeup for the branding, doing the printing. And so it's like, if I can't do this part anymore, the whole thing is gone. And I don't want to disappoint anyone. And it was one of those things of I wasn't honoring myself because what people didn't see, they just saw like pretty websites and branding and everybody being like, oh, Coy was great to work with. And I'm like, yay, you know. What they didn't see was what I was failing to give to my family because I was completely out of grace, out of energy, I was doing takeout and ordering food because it was like, I can't even cook anymore. I don't have time. I have to go and I have to fix this website and I have to do this. And I remember I did a 3-day stretch where I literally only slept for 4 hours over the course of 3 days.
Oh, my.
And I was just living off of coffee and adrenaline and like needing to get it done and not wanting to disappoint. And that's kind of where I say that carousel of boundaries for yourself and saying yes to yourself. If my community, if my sisters didn't step in and acknowledge and show me, like pull me back out of it and show me, like be those mirrors reflecting who I actually am and who I can be and who I wasn't because of how much I was pouring into work and not into myself or anybody else around me because of so much work. It was kind of like, oh, I felt like I was on that show where they do the interventions and they're about to go take you. Like, we have to drag you away. We have to show you this is a problem. It looks so good on the surface. It looks so beautiful. If you get on Facebook, everybody's happy about it.
Yeah.
But you're going to kill yourself eventually. You're really cutting off all of the lifeline that you have because you're barely functioning. And so it was kind of an intervention that happened there where it was like, we love you. One of my friends has even taken me to go, I don't know if you've been to Wake Foot Spa in Knoxville.
Oh, yes,
Shout out
of
to them.
course.
This is not a paid thing, so just know that this is genuine. But took 2 of us out to go do the foot soak and just relax. And it was like, that was one of the first times that I had just slowed down. Outside, this is not like a COVID thing. This was like an actual self-care time for just me. We weren't even speaking to each other. You're in a quiet, dark room. Your feet are soaking. And it's just like you and your thoughts. And as I'm relaxing and I'm just seeing like, whoa, these are all the things all these creative ideas started coming up. And it was like, wow, you haven't been living in your creative space because you've just been checklists and Asana to-dos and knocking them out and web development and staring at a screen, for hours and hours on end. And it was like an opportunity to reconnect with myself. But because of them, they facilitated that.
Yeah. It's important, and you have a great tribe that'll do that because I think one of the key components of, whether you call it your tribe or your sisterhood or your board of directors or whatever you call it, if you have a good team around you, they will check you on your ego real quick. And that's really what it was, right? That's kind of what you talked about. Like, I'm being invited to things, I'm going to things, people see me and they're acknowledging me and praising me. And that's where we have allowed our ego to become bigger than, I don't want to say appropriate necessarily, but bigger than the sum of who we are, right? Because that became more important. And it's very intoxicating. It's completely understandable. There's no shaming in any of it, but that's why a community is so important because we can let those things happen to us. We can, I've been there too, and there's, as a working mom, there's a pride in ownership, right? It's that really hard line between, am I putting too much into work and not being enough of a mom? Am I being too much of a mom and not putting enough into work? Because they're paying me for this, right? But I got to take care of my kids and I got to work in order to take care of my kids. It is, in my opinion, one of the worst equations that exists on planet Earth. And so it is very easy to find yourself caught up in the ego part because you're going, oh gosh, okay, I'm doing well. I'm getting the accolades, which means I'm getting more money, which means I can take better care of my family and my kids. But I'm kind of sacrificing over here because I'm not cooking as much. But we go out to eat or we do these fun things, and it is so critical to have a good tribe or board of directors behind you that will go, okay, you're cute and all, but let's bring it down, back down to reality, and let's make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So good on you for having that kind of community behind you. It's not an easy thing to build. It's not. I think as women, we have a tendency to become a little gun shy, right? Of who do we let in that closely? Who do we allow because we're, especially mommies, we're big on like, we don't allow a lot of stuff. We're the ones that do the allowing, right? So who are we going to allow into our lives and allow to tell us, that we're doing too much, we're not doing enough, we need to pay more attention. I will tell you, my daughter, she is, so you mentioned earlier, like your mommy mom. Just wait. Your kids will get old enough. She calls me by my first name sometimes, and bless her heart is all I will say about that. She also sometimes calls me bruh. So that's pretty cool too. So you're close. You're getting there. I think the first time she called me bro, I think she was like 17 or 18 years old. So that's always fun. It kind of rattles you for a second. But she actually, a couple years ago, she came to me and she just said, Mommy, like, stop. You have to take care of yourself. You are not taking care of yourself. We will be okay. We're okay. Like, but if you're not okay, we're not going to be okay. So I would say you've got your tribe, right? You've got your sisterhood. But think of how your family can also be your tribe, because as your kids get older, they see you, and they see you in a way that those girls will never see you.
Listen, let me tell you about my 4 and 6-year-old. So Onyx and Quest, those are the youngest two. But Onyx, the 6-year-old, is an old soul. I am sure that she has been here before. She sometimes has wisdom beyond me, where I'm like, how? I remember there was a weekend, and she was asking, could we go to something, and I'll give you all the money that I have. And I was saying, baby, I don't need your money. And she was like, well, if I give you money, then you don't have to work for so long so that you can make more money so that we can go. And I don't want you to work all the time, because then we won't get to go because you're too busy on your computer. Oh my gosh.
Did she hang out with my Max? Because Max used to do the same thing to me too. And he's 7. And he used to do the same thing when he was like 5 and 6 years old. It's the same thing. They see you. They see you.
Listen, when I say my heart like dropped to the bottom of me, I was just like, I'm working too much.
Yeah.
And they see it. They are equating mommy sitting at the computer with, that's the only way that she's going to make more money, and that's the only way that we can spend time with her, is if she doesn't have to do that. And so, I would say there's been multiple wake-up calls. So you definitely have, your peers, that intentional community that you build, and the people that you place around you that you can trust and be vulnerable with. I think that's what you were getting to earlier. Like, who do you let that be? But gosh, children are
they see it.
They're always almost part of your why. Like, everybody's driven by something, and for me, that's always going to be a part of it. It doesn't matter what other mission I have in life. Creating a better future for them, a different type of childhood than what I had for them, is always going to be part of that.
Absolutely.
And so when you realize, I know you talked about ego earlier, but it's like even more than that. You've gotten away from what was the reason you were doing all this for?
Correct.
You wanted to make more so that what? It wasn't about the money. It was about the freedom that came with having that, but you've instead become a slave to something else. And so it's like you have to constantly humble yourself and remind yourself of why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. It makes it a lot easier to know what to say yes to and what to say no to.
It sure does. And kids will humble you quick. So let them humble you quick. You talked earlier about balance. I loved your analogy about the scale. So next time I'm at the doctor, I'm going to be like, I'm here for harmony. And I'm just going to get off whenever I feel like getting off. So as a mother, a nonprofit worker, a creative, all of the things that Coy Kindred is, how do you manage to harmonize all of these diverse roles? We're not going to use the word balance. We're going to use the word harmonize.
How do you manage it?
Let's be real. Like, do you manage it? Do you feel like you manage it?
I'm going to say that it goes back to having a supportive community, because I wouldn't be able to without it, without having a supportive partner, without having people around me to be those checks and balances to my decisions and my, when I'm battling with something or when I'm just having a rough time. Like I was just having a conversation the other day where I was saying, wow, there was a morning where I just didn't want to exist. Like the overwhelm of life was feeling like I don't want to not be here, but I also just don't want to. I just want one day off of life. Like I just want one day to not be, to not have to make any decisions, for nobody to call me or ask me, like if I could just go disappear into a cave somewhere in a mountain and all the fruit and food that I need, you know, to survive is in there, and I don't have to like exist to the rest of society for just 24 hours, where you feel so overwhelmed by what is happening around you. Having people that you can be vulnerable enough with to say, like, I really am struggling with just doing life today, with just adulting today, and not feeling judgment, not getting the just like, oh, give it the old college try and just push through it, because sometimes that's not what you need to hear. Sometimes you just need your emotions to be held in the moment of, it's okay. You just need that validated. It's okay to be overwhelmed. I don't know why we're so afraid of speaking on it. We spend so much time trying to suppress how hard life can be that we're sidestepping reality to a point where you're just trying to cope with what, you know, well, I'm just going to do it day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, and I'm okay right now. And if I have another cup of coffee and then I chug down some water and I go for a run, you know, that's going to change my hormones. I'm going to be in a better mood. My cortisol is going to change. All of those things happen, and it inches you towards feeling better, but it doesn't get you to the root of what's actually happening. So I think actually being okay with sitting and embracing where you are, and having people who will allow you to do that without necessarily coming up with solutions for you, but just holding the space, and then being there if they see you sinking, to be able to pull you back. Say, okay, we've let you have it. You've had it. Now let's come out. Let's come back to light. And I have a perfect balance of that. And it took so much time to find those right people. We laugh because I have 2 people that are feelers in my group, and I have 2, I'm one of the 2 strong, we'll say the strong friends that are not as vulnerable all the time. Like, we have to choose vulnerability. We have to practice it. We have to really try to like crack
That's
open.
why we get along so well, because I'm also not.
Yes.
My therapist, she goes, you know, feelings are okay. And I was like, okay.
Yes, we have 2 criers in the group. And when they cry, I'm just like, part of me is like swelling up inside. And I'm like, oh, I want to cry for you. Like, I want to cry with you.
Me
it's
too.
not happening. There's no water coming, but I feel all of the
Yeah.
feelings. And I think, so I end up expressing those through music or through poetry, because I can word it and I can put strength behind it where other people can feel it. And then it evokes that emotion and other people can let it out. But I've had to practice sitting with feelings. Oh, it's such hard work. It's so hard.
I love that you practice. I'm not practicing.
Well, I'm faced with it, because we've got this group of, hey, I see the 2 of you're going into your logical side, and we see you trying to justify, or you're trying to rationalize why you feel a thing. You don't
I feel
have
attacked.
to.
I'm not gonna lie. Coy, stop.
And this is them speaking to me, and that, but it's that balance, because when my mom used to say, I'm a waterhead. I just cry at everything. A commercial could come on and I'm crying. When you have people who are just able to give into, they're usually the most passionate people in your life. The ones that are really strong, they're usually the anchors in your life. And so finding the perfect mix, it's like you're almost this alchemist trying to find the right pieces, the right people to put together. And that's the only way that you're going to make it through life, is finding that right combination of people that you have around you that are going to balance you. They're going to mirror, and kind of like me and you, I can tell there's a strength, there's a little bit of a fire. Seeing that in the other person, that helps. It also helps you see when it's not good, right? Because you can go back and say, oh, I do that sometimes.
I agree.
That doesn't serve me always.
I agree.
And so it's finding that whole community.
You know, I have found that, and I found this recently, that community found me. You know, when you know, people that we know, we work with, and, you know, within the Let Her Lead community and all of that kind of stuff, you know, they're well known and they do this, that, and the other thing, and they're phenomenal. And you see a certain view of them, right? You see the public persona, so to speak. And then when you see them really with their people, it makes sense to you. And I learned recently, like, those people in my life show themselves to me. You know, you don't really, I am not 35. I'm a little bit older than 35. And it takes a long time. I think it's hard, you know, as a woman. I moved here to Knoxville about almost 6.5 years ago. And, you know, I knew not one single person. I moved here with my daughter and my son. And, you know, it wasn't that I wasn't trying to make friends, but I also wasn't trying to make friends. Like I had work to do. I was in the, like, I have bills to pay. I have children to take care of. I have to work. I worked really hard, blah, blah, blah. And then friendships came, which was great. And they came organically, which was wonderful. And then over time, those friendships, those relationships defined themselves, which was really great. Because I think as women, we spend so much of our youth we are creating friendships. Oh, I like the way that she dresses, or we do the same sport, or we do the same music, or whatever it is. And we're so busy trying to make friendships that we somehow in our adult lives have to realize that those friendships are just going to become. And those people that are the best people for your tribe, like you said, you and I are very similar. I could send my daughter an Instagram something right now and she would burst into tears. It does not matter what it would be. It could be funny. It could be sad. It could be happy. She will just cry. She would send me something and I would go, ha ha. And it's supposed to be sad, right? So, it's just those people present themselves to you and they show you who they are. And then you go, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful because you are exactly what I needed that I didn't know that I needed, or that I did know that I needed, but I was afraid to ask.
Absolutely. And I've had people ask me, like, I've even had women tell me, like, I see you and your friends. I see you posting, doing things together. Like, how did y'all find that? Like, I want that. I know I can't just insert myself into your group, but how do I cultivate that in my life? How do I create that? And what I tried to think back, like, how did we get connected? It was not about seeking each other out because we all met by chance.
Right.
And it's so funny because my closest friends to me, we've all connected through poetry. But we didn't know that when we met each other necessarily. But it was about being in a space of being open and receptive to it, being whole. I think it's kind of like with relationships, with love relationships, you usually don't find the person that's your person until you stop looking and trying so hard to find the person. When you actually focus on being the best you, that allows you to be the best partner, which then it sends something out into the universe that's like, oh, here's a person who's whole and ready, and now all of these opportunities can be put in front of them. It's the same thing with friendship. And I think as women, it can be really, really hard because there's this underlying layer sometimes of competition or this cattiness that people have experienced from high school or Mean Girls in middle school, and everybody's hormones were crazy. Everything was all over the place. I don't think most of us are not who we were then. And so the closest friendships that I have now were developed over the last decade. But I know that they're going to be with me until, I can't speak anymore, or until I'm barely walking. And so I think you have to put yourself in a position to be open to those relationships of saying, wow, I want to be a person who can support others instead of saying, I need people who can just listen to me and hear me.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it whining, but you're not going to get that because what are you getting? Where there has to be something reciprocal that happens. And so if there's not anything there to give, you cannot expect to receive. And so really pouring into yourself, knowing who you are. And that's how we all cross paths. I think we actually met at a poetry event where we both ended up going up, and at the end we're like, we have to know each other. And we just never stopped knowing each other from that day on. Others, we met at a bonfire. There happened to be poetry by the end of the night, but we didn't know that when we got there. And it was just one of those things where it's so funny. She was struggling in her heels to go up this grassy hill in South Knoxville. And I was walking by her and I'm like, let's hook arms and we're both going to make it up there because we're both struggling up this hill. And it's just like, it was almost symbolic of what it's been like because she's now going to be my maid of honor when I get married this summer. And it's like, those things just happen organically when you're in that space, when you're being authentic to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. I think with a lot of things in life, you have to stop the looking, right? And then, the world will show itself to you, which is a really beautiful thing. But, for those of us that may be a little less vulnerable than others, it's a little harder for us to do that. So you speak often about redefining narratives, overcoming labels. How are you approaching the process of rewriting your story, and what challenges have you faced while you're doing that?
That is the most loaded question now that I'm I'm listening to you as you're saying it and trying to answer it all at the same time in my head. I'm like, ooh, there's so much there. Okay.
Maybe the way to think about it is, we've talked a lot today, and you've shared some of your challenges that you've had. I don't know that I would have to say, I don't know that you're rewriting your story. I think you're just, you're starting a new chapter, right? You don't have to. I think when we think about the word rewriting, it's almost like we're taking an eraser and going over all the other stuff. And we can't do that. That's not a good idea, right? We have to own everything, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. We always want to own the good stuff, right? Like, oh, this funny story or this great thing or this award or whatever else, right? I think rewriting is maybe the wrong vocabulary to use. And I would say, what challenges have you faced in starting this new chapter?
Yeah, I like that because I thank you for challenging that language, because you're not actually rewriting. It's more of choosing your ending. It makes me think of the old Goosebumps stories where I remember sitting in the library and reading through. And
okay, y'all, she's so young because we call it choose your own adventure books, but continue, Goosebumps.
Choose your own adventure.
I'm so much older than you, Coy. This is so terrible.
Well, if you want me to, I can really take it back to I'm from Syracuse, New York, and we had this. It was like a hotline, and they had a thing called Adventure Seekers, and you could call this 1-800 number, and you would choose your own adventure, and it would be like, okay, you're walking up to a bridge. You can either press 1 if you want to go over the bridge. Press 2 if you want to battle whatever's underneath. And you would have to pick one of the things.
I love choose your own adventure books because it would say at the bottom, like, if you want to continue on this, go to page 47. If you want to do this, you go to page 23. Well, I would look at both and see which one I liked better.
That's cheating.
What? It's a book, Coy. It's not real life. Settle down.
See, that points that you want it to be in control, and I think that's okay, one of the things. Rude, I know. Yeah. I know. I just sucked all the fun out of that moment, but it's so real because
it is real.
It was a reflection of me because I used to do the same thing. I think most people did. If you could know, it was kind of like you wouldn't read the whole thing, but it would be like, let me just see the couple first lines. Yeah. Is the story over?
I would love to meet someone that didn't peek at both. Please tell me who you are.
No, we all want to have some level of control.
That's right.
But I definitely think bringing it back to real life, that's what it is. You're not actually rewriting the story. I know for me, statistically, just based on where I'm from, the story of my mom and all of the obstacles that she faced in her life, me bouncing from household to household, all of the things that should have counted me out from where I am today. I think I've already shifted the narrative just by not becoming the statistic that society expects me to be because of these situations. Even now, being a mother of 4, there's a lot. People don't even, large families, people are like, whoa, you have to have 3 rows in your SUV, don't you? Because where do you fit all those?
I leave some behind. I just choose who I like the best that day.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stigma around having a large family, and there's a lot of assumptions that people will make if they see, a young Black woman. I'm saying young. I don't know what qualifies as young, but a young Black woman with 2 teens and then 2 elementary school age. They already have ideas about.
Oh, they've created your chapter for you.
Oh, yeah. They know what my life is. They probably are imagining where I'm living.
Yeah. They have a lot of opinions.
Yeah. For sure. And so I love proving people wrong. I do. They say, success is the best revenge. And I don't think of myself as having any enemies, but conquering life is on my list, And so.
I love that. That's a great answer.
That's a good answer. Did I answer the question?
No, but it's no, I'm just kidding. Yes, of course you did. No, it is a really good answer. I mean, I think, as women, we probably know people that have, we know so many women that have so many different stories. And at the end of the day, it's none of our business, how anybody started, got to wherever they were midway through their journey or where they are now. It's none of our business, right? That's her own story. We have no right to an opinion or anything like that. And so I know what you mean. My daughter is 22. My son is 7. I moved here as a single woman. I got some choice comments, and it happens. And that's okay. The whole trick is to be unfazed by it, because that's what bothers people the most. They want you to react, right? They want you to, so you just keep on keeping on and let them have their opinions and their corduroy pants and their bad attitudes and whatever else. But no, I think it's a great story. I think it's a great answer. Revenge serves nothing and nobody, and it's ugly. Don't do that. Just keep on doing you and being you, and being so cute about it. And yes, you are young. You can say young. It's fine.
Oh, that's funny.
So, let's talk a little bit about the Let Her Lead program. How has the Let Her Lead program influenced your perspective on leadership and personal development? And you can say, this is where you say a lot of amazing things about me, obviously. So I'll let you have the floor.
Okay, I'll start by saying,
I'm kidding.
By pairing me with the best mentor ever in history of the world. No, there has been so much. I have this app called Marco Polo that I stay connected to my friends with. Every time I would come out of a Let Her Lead session, before I could even make it out of the Market Square parking lot, I'd immediately turn on the Polo. You guys, I just had the best session again. It's another set of gems. I remember, so when we entered the program, and Catherine has done an amazing job of organizing everything.
Agreed.
But we got these turquoise journals and these glittery pens, and I was like, ooh, I feel important. I feel like something important is going to get written in here. It just felt magical, right?
I didn't get a glittery pen.
You're on the other side. I'm sure we could work something out for you. We'll talk about it offline. And so I remember one of the biggest thing, I don't know if it's the first thing I wrote in this journal, but one of the most memorable things that I wrote down was there was something, and I don't remember if Catherine said it because I just wrote it so big and bold and traced over it so many times, but it was never be the first person to tell yourself no. Like, you don't get to say no to you. And that whether that's not making the ask, that was you. That was definitely Catherine's words. But it was like if you refuse to make the ask because you're moving out of fear, or you're refusing to take action, which I have learned is like at the foundation of what courage is. If you do those things, you're saying no to yourself. And it seems like something so small because, I mean, we learned so much over the entire program was beautifully put together, and just being in connection with the right people. So many conversations were sparked. It was like, I will call it a seed planting program because it goes well beyond what she crafted and created in our actual curriculum was one thing, and it was beautiful. So many resources and so many, moments and sparks of inspiration. But what we built outside of that and how we supported each other, most of us were complete strangers, not knowing each other at all, maybe seeing each other at some events like, oh, yes, I've seen that person. But then to see them in those spaces and watch them evolve in such a short amount of time, transformative. Absolutely. But that one line, it's the one that sticks out to me. I kept thinking, like, as I was like, we're graduating. It's over. None of us want it to end. Like, we're like, can we just keep meet? Are we allowed to still use this building? Can we meet on our own? Just like, yeah, I mean, y'all are people. You're allowed to talk to each other after, you don't need me here to do that. But she created this beautiful thing that has grown into something else. But something about, I don't know what it is about the word no when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to telling it to ourselves when we don't need to. That's like, something about that keeps
we're
coming
very
up.
well versed, and we're mothers, and we're very well versed in telling other people no. We're excellent at that, but
ourselves, we say it at the wrong time. We say,
we say no to all
ourselves.
The worst stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, by not, you said we're gun shy. We don't want to take that action. Don't want to. It's not you. I've built so much confidence in being able to articulate my value, not just because of the utility of what I can produce, but because of who I am. That's what I'm taking away from this program.
That's amazing.
That was something. That sounded
that
good.
was
Now
good.
I'm hearing it back to myself.
You
I'm
should
like,
put
yeah,
that in a
was
podcast
good.
or
I think you should
something.
put that in a line on your website.
I do too.
Coy Kindred said, put quotes.
Now that you've had an opportunity to learn about Coy's leadership journey, let's listen in as she shares the legacy she wants to leave behind.
One of the hardest things I've ever been asked to do is to introduce myself. You might be wondering, what's so hard about that? You say your name, what you do, where you're from, so on and so forth, but here's the catch. Imagine being asked to introduce yourself without saying anything about what you do for a living, where you're from, or who you are in relation to anyone else. That's kind of tough, right? I've often been introduced as Coy Kindred, mother of 4, sister of many. Sometimes I'm called a poet, an advocate, a creative, and now through this highly transformational program, I embrace the title of leader along with some of the most inspiring women that I've ever met. And as proud as I am of all of these things, they still don't fully answer the question without breaking the rules. I realize now that really most of us, right, have spent the majority of our lives letting other people define us without taking stock of those invisible hidden parts of our stories, the parts that actually shape us into who we are. The beauty of this intricate task of breaking down who we are, aside from all of those titles and associations, is this unique opportunity to take this internal inventory and really getting our hands dirty and raking through our experiences, recognizing and weeding out the lessons that have been cyclical, meaning that we've repeated them over and over. My experience, of course, is that you don't stop being taught a lesson until you've actually learned it. And by evaluating the fruit that we've produced. If you see a tree, what's the fastest way to recognize it? By its flowers or typically by its fruit. I've learned that when it comes to people, you'll know them by their fruit. And that fruit can represent so many things, right? Your character, your reputation, the way you treat people, the energy that you bring into a room, the tenacity in which you chase down your dreams. It's really up to you to decide how you want to define it. But however you do, the fruit is both evidence and it's affirmation of who you are. And even more, if you were to cut open that fruit, the seeds that you find inside, and just note that we're all planting seeds all of the time, whether we know it or not. But those seeds can be used to strategically plant and cultivate the garden that's going to support you, your family, and ultimately your community to thrive. And so I've made it my personal mission to help till the soil of tenacious women who are ready to tend to their gardens. And whenever I share this mission, the next question is usually, Coy, what makes you so passionate about this? It's hard enough work trying to figure it all out on your own. You have 4 kids, you work at a nonprofit by day, you're a creative by night, you serve on the media ministry. How in the world do you even find the capacity to lean into this work that takes such heavy emotional lifting? Well, I have 3 answers to that. And the first answer is that I really don't. I don't have the capacity to do it on my own. What I do have is wisdom enough to know that I don't have to. Which also brings me to my second answer, my tribe. The circle that holds me steady when life gets really rocky. When I have high capacity, I pour into them. And when I have low to no capacity, guess what? They pour into me. This is the reason I advocate so fiercely for community, because if we're being honest, none of us do. I've been very intentional about maintaining these relationships that not only support my goals, my dreams, they hold me accountable in love and remind me of who I am when life gets to lifing and I start to forget. If society ever tries to tell me who I am based on my past, or who I should be because of the cards that have been stacked against me, they are the truest reflection of who I really am. This is the type of sisterhood I deeply desire for every woman to have. It is so necessary. When it comes to why I am so passionate about my life's mission, my final answer is my mom. The reason I'm able to do most of the hard things in life almost always leads me back to her. If you know my background, you might wonder, how do you explain finding strength through someone who fell weak to drug addiction? Someone whose body was so weak from chemotherapy that she could break a bone just reaching for a kitchen cabinet. Where is the strength in that? This is why the reclamation of your story and self-definition is so critical. I don't have to rewrite history to define my mother as more than a crackhead, a single mother, a food stamp recipient, wheelchair-bound, a cancer patient. What many people don't know is that when I was born, they said she'd be lucky to see me make it to kindergarten. They don't even know that she prayed every single day after her diagnosis to live long enough just to see me graduate and get into college. My college acceptance letters came in April. I graduated from high school in May, flew back home to visit her in June, and she passed in July. I was 18 years old. She wasn't supposed to see me make it to kindergarten. Doctors couldn't even explain why she was still alive when she was. She may have battled addiction, but in the end, she won. My mom was clean when she left here. And yes, I cried a lot of tears over her, but a few of them were because I witnessed a miracle. She was a miracle. She showed me that no matter what anyone says, no matter how people may try to label you, there's always another story buried somewhere underneath. You owe it to yourself and to those who will follow in your footsteps to reclaim that story. Unearth those pages and rewrite your ending as many times as it takes until you get it right. I'm still in the process of crafting my story, and I hope one day I can be the light that helps you see how simple it can be to pick up the pen and write yours.
This episode of She Speaks is brought to you by our amazing partners at Shod Companies. She Speaks is produced, edited, and scored by the very talented Travis Tench at Oak Hill Audio. If you loved the episode you just heard and want to support Let Her Speak's mission of elevating real women's stories, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share at Let Her Speak USA. Together, we will make our voices heard.